I need a new car. You'll co-sign. My sister's text popped up on my phone while I was stirring my coffee, the steam curling up into my face as if even the mug knew what nonsense I was about to read. She didn't ask, she demanded. No. Emojis. No explanations. Just that entitled sentence. Like it was already decided I'd put my name, my credit, my financial stability on the line so she could drive around in a shiny new car she couldn't afford. I remember staring at the screen, my thumb hovering before I typed back 2 words, dream on. What I didn't know then was that those 2 words would ignite a chain of events that would rip open every hidden fault line in our family, from the way my parents had raised us to who they really sided with when push came to shove. To outsiders, we looked like a normal family, but the truth was, for years my sister had gotten away with playing princess while I played fixer, her reckless spending and constant need for attention propped up by my sacrifices. And this time, with a car loan and my name at stake, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just saying no to a car. I was saying no to decades of manipulation, to being the one who paid the price for her mistakes, to being the safety net she thought would always be there. And once I hit send, her reply and my refusal would set the tone for everything that followed. Minutes later, my phone lit up again, but this time it wasn't just one message. It was a storm. First came the fake shock. Are you serious? You're my sister, of course you'll help me. Then the guilt trip. Do you know how humiliating it is to get denied at the dealership? Do you want me to walk everywhere like a loser? And finally, the knife twist. Mom and Dad always said you'd never understand responsibility. Guess they were right. I set my cup down and just stared, because it was like she'd rehearsed every line she knew would hit me where it hurt. Responsibility. That word had been shoved down my throat since I was 12. I was the one who babysat her while our parents went out, the one who gave up summer jobs so I could stay home when she forgot her inhaler or skipped school, the one who filled out college paperwork while she went partying with her friends. And yet somehow she always spun it so I looked like the cold one, the selfish one, the unloving sister who didn't want to help. But there's a difference between helping and being used. And the truth was, I had been used my entire life. When she drained my savings at 18 by borrowing my debit card for a shopping spree, I forgave her. When she crashed my old car in college and left me stranded for weeks, I forgave her. But standing in my kitchen, watching her texts pile up, I realized forgiveness had just been her free ticket to repeat the same cycle again and again. I wasn't angry at her for asking. I was angry at myself for letting her believe I'd say, yes. And as I sat there, my phone buzzing on the counter like a wasp trapped in glass, I thought, this isn't about a car, it's about finally cutting the cord. Because once you tell someone like my sister, dream on, you either hold the line or you lose yourself completely. Her next move was exactly what I expected, but it still made my chest tighten. She looped in my parents. A group text appeared with her at the center, claiming I was refusing to support the family, as though signing for her car was some kind of sacred duty. My mother replied within minutes, "Honey, your sister just needs a little help getting started. You've always been the responsible one. Can't you do this one thing?" That phrase, the responsible one, was like a brand burned into me since childhood. I could almost hear her voice from years back, telling me to set the table, while my sister ran off to the mall, reminding me to keep my grades high so I could set an example. My father chimed in too with a shorter, colder line, "Your sister has been through enough. Don't be cruel." Cruel. That was their favorite weaponized word. Not careful or smart or protecting myself, but cruel, as if drawing boundaries was an act of violence. I sat down hard at my kitchen table, my phone buzzing with their messages stacking up like a coordinated ambush. And I remembered so many moments, so many small humiliations, like when I saved for months to buy myself a laptop in high school and came home to find my sister using it, already logged into her social media accounts, as if it had never belonged to me. When I complained, my parents told me not to be selfish. You can share, your sisters. Or the time she broke my favorite necklace, a gift from my grandmother, and when I cried, they brushed it off. She didn't mean it. Stop being dramatic. It was a pattern carved into my bones. Her wants always came first, my pain always dismissed. But now, as an adult with my own job, my own bills, my own fragile credit score, I realized something powerful. No one could force me to say yes anymore. They could guilt me, they could insult me, but the only signature that mattered was mine, and I wasn't giving it. So I didn't answer the group chat. I let the silence stretch. And in that silence, something inside me finally started to heal. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to them, I was choosing myself. What I didn't know yet was that silence would soon erupt into chaos I could never have imagined. The chaos came 2 days later, when my sister showed up at my apartment unannounced. I heard the pounding on my door before I even saw her, the kind of pounding that demanded attention, the kind that said she wasn't leaving until she got what she wanted. When I opened it, she was standing there with mascara streaked under her eyes, phone in hand, her nails tapping furiously against the screen. "You made me look like an idiot," she hissed, waving her phone in my face. "I was at the dealership with my friend, and I told them you'd co-sign. They ran your name, and when you didn't show up, they laughed at me. Do you know how humiliating that was?" I stepped back, letting her into my living room only because I didn't want the neighbors to hear the fight brewing. She dropped her bag on my couch like she owned the place and spun around to glare at me, her voice climbing higher with each word. "Mom says you're being vindictive. Dad says you're jealous. You've always been jealous of me." I almost laughed because the word jealous was so absurd it barely made sense. Jealous of what? Her constant overdraft notices, her endless line of ex-boyfriends who left as soon as the bills piled up, her habit of turning every favor into a debt I owed. Her? But instead of laughing, I stayed calm because I had finally learned the one thing she never expected. I didn't have to match her chaos. I told her simply, "I'm not signing for your car. That's final." She froze for a second, as if those words didn't compute, then launched into another tirade. She accused me of ruining her life, of sabotaging her future, of being heartless. She even threatened to tell the rest of the family I had abandoned her. But as I watched her pace my living room, I noticed something I'd never really let myself see before. The desperation wasn't just for a car, it was for control. My sister had built her entire identity on the assumption that I'd always cave, always bend, always put her needs before my own. And now that I wasn't, she didn't know who she was anymore. That realization gave me a strange calm. I sat down on my own couch, folded my arms, and said, "You'll figure it out. You always do." For the first time, she had no comeback. She just stared at me, breathing hard, then grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I sat there in the quiet, my heart racing but steady, and realized something I hadn't dared to admit until now. This fight wasn't the end of our war. It was only the beginning. Sure enough, the beginning showed itself faster than I expected. That weekend, I drove out to my parents' house for what was supposed to be a quiet Sunday dinner. The moment I walked in, the air felt thick, like a storm waiting to break. My mother didn't greet me with her usual stiff hug. She stayed at the stove, slamming pots around louder than necessary. My father sat in his chair, newspaper open, but his eyes fixed firmly on me the second I stepped into the room. And my sister? She was already there, lounging on the couch like a queen who had summoned me to her court. "So," my father said, folding the paper with an exaggerated snap, "do you want to explain why your sister is crying herself to sleep every night because you refuse to help her?" I blinked at him, almost amused, because the picture they painted didn't match reality. She wasn't crying, she was weaponizing tears. She wasn't helpless, she was addicted to shortcuts. My mother jumped in before I could answer, her voice sharp as knives. "We raised you better than this. Family helps family. Always. You're older, you're supposed to set the example." There it was again, the example. The chain that had bound me since childhood. The invisible leash they tugged on whenever my sister wanted something. I glanced at her, sprawled on the couch with a smug little smirk curling her lips, because she knew exactly how this game went. She poked the bruise, they applied pressure, and I caved. But this time I didn't. "I'm not co-signing," I said calmly, setting my bag on the floor. "And if this dinner is just an intervention to bully me into it, I'll leave right now." Silence dropped like a stone. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's face went pale, and my sister sat up straighter, clearly not expecting me to stand my ground in their house. "You've changed," my mother whispered, her voice trembling as if I'd betrayed some sacred oath. And maybe I had. Maybe I'd broken the unspoken contract that I was the family's safety net, the responsible one who carried everyone else's weight. But as I sat at that table, listening to the clatter of silverware and the thick silence, between every forced bite, I felt something stronger than guilt. I felt free. Because for the first time in years, I realized their approval wasn't worth the price of my own peace. What I didn't know then was that my refusal would push my sister to her boldest, most reckless move yet. And this time, she wouldn't just drag me into it, she'd drag the law too. It happened on a Wednesday morning when I was halfway through answering emails at work. My phone buzzed with a notification from the bank, one of those cold, automated alerts. "Suspicious activity detected on your account." My stomach dropped because I hadn't used my card that day. I logged in and there it was. An attempted charge for nearly $6,000 at a local car dealership. My blood went cold. I didn't need to guess who it was. Within seconds, I was calling the bank, my voice shaking but steady enough to get the fraud department on the line. They confirmed someone had tried to run my card, that they'd flagged it and blocked the transaction, and that a police report could be filed if I wanted. When I asked for the dealership name, my worst suspicion was confirmed. It was the very same place my sister had humiliated herself before. She hadn't just begged, she had gone further. She'd tried to impersonate me. I sat frozen at my desk, the reality sinking in that this wasn't a petty argument anymore. It was identity theft. A crime. And as much as my heart wanted to believe she wouldn't cross that line, my head knew better. She'd always been told the rules didn't apply to her, and now, with her back against the wall, she'd decided my credit, my name, my future, were just tools for her survival. I left work early, drove straight to the dealership, and asked to see the manager. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd been caught in the middle of something ugly. He admitted a young woman had tried to use my information, had insisted she was me, even flashing a driver's license with her picture, but my name. My hands trembled when I realized how far she'd gone. She had faked an ID. The manager said they'd kept a copy of the attempt on file and would hand it over if the police got involved. That's when the last thread of denial snapped inside me. This wasn't a sibling spat anymore. This was fraud. This was criminal. This was her dragging me down into a pit I had no intention of falling into. That evening, sitting alone in my apartment, I stared at my phone as it buzzed with more of her messages. Angry, desperate, manipulative. "You don't understand how much I need this. You're ruining my life. If you loved me, you'd help." And then, the one that made my blood run ice cold. "If you call the cops, you'll regret it." That was the moment I knew. There was no going back. I wasn't protecting a sister anymore. I was protecting myself from someone who had chosen to become a threat. And the next morning, I walked into the police station with the evidence in my hand. Filing that report felt like crossing a bridge I could never return from. The officer at the desk listened carefully, his pen scratching against the incident form as I handed over the dealership paperwork and the bank alert. When I showed him the fake ID copy, his eyebrows shot up. "This isn't a misunderstanding," he said flatly. "This is fraud." Hearing it out loud sent a shiver through me. Fraud. Not a family squabble, not sibling drama. Fraud. He explained the process. They'd open a case, the dealership would provide statements, and my sister would likely be contacted for questioning. As I walked out of that station, the sunlight felt strange, too bright, like the world was carrying on as normal while mine tilted on its axis. By the time I got home, the fallout had already begun. My mother called, her voice breaking with fury. "How could you? She's your sister. You've ruined her life. Do you want her to have a criminal record?" My father's voice came next, cold and sharp. "Withdraw the complaint. Now. Family doesn't turn on family." But family doesn't. Steal your identity. Family doesn't threaten you when you won't cover for them. And family doesn't fake your driver's license to buy a car. My sister, though, didn't call me directly. She posted. Her social media lit up with vague statuses about betrayal, about snakes in the grass, about how some people would rather see you in jail than see you happy. Friends and cousins began reaching out, asking if it was true I'd set her up. Set her up? The mental gymnastics left me dizzy. I tried to ignore it, but by the end of the week, a letter arrived. An official one? A subpoena. They were moving forward, and she was being called in. I held that envelope in my shaking hands, realizing my silence had ended long ago. My name was on record, and now the law had her name too. I didn't sleep that night. I kept pacing my apartment, the walls closing in as I imagined her fury, her panic, her next move. Because if she had already gone this far, what else was she willing to do? What I didn't know was that the answer was waiting just around the corner, and it would tear my family apart in ways none of us could piece back together. ChatGPT Skazal. The corner came faster than I expected. The night before her scheduled interview with the detectives, I got another knock on my door. Not pounding this time, softer, almost rehearsed. When I opened it, there she was, my sister, eyes red, makeup smeared, clutching a tote bag like it was a lifeline. "Can we talk?" she whispered, her voice trembling. For a split second, a part of me almost softened, almost believed this was remorse. She stepped inside before I could answer, sat down at my kitchen table, and spilled it all in a rush. She admitted she'd used my name, admitted the fake ID, admitted she'd panicked when the dealership laughed at her. She said she never meant for it to go that far, that she thought I'd cave like always, that she just needed someone to rescue her one last time. "Please," she begged, grabbing my hand so hard her nails dug into my skin. "If you drop the charges, they'll forget it ever happened. Mom and Dad will forgive you. We can move past this." I pulled my hands away slowly, my heart thudding. Forgive me? As though I was the criminal. As though my life, my credit, my safety had been collateral damage in her story. I told her firmly, "No, this isn't about a car anymore. It's about trust. And you broke it." Her face twisted, the desperation slipping into rage. She stood knocking over her chair, shouting that I was heartless, that I wanted to see her rot in jail, that I was jealous of her freedom. Freedom. That word hit me like a brick, because yes, she was free. Free to destroy herself, free to steal, free to burn every bridge she crossed. And I was finally free too. Free to say no, free to protect myself, free to let the consequences land where they belonged. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook, and for the first time, I didn't chase after her. The next morning, I got the call. She hadn't shown up to the interview. A warrant was being prepared. My phone lit up with my parents' names again and again, their voices raging in voicemails, blaming me for everything unraveling. But as I sat in my quiet apartment, listening to the messages pile up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Because this time, it wasn't my fire to put out. It was hers, and she'd lit it herself. The peace didn't last long, because when someone like my sister feels cornered, they don't surrender. They lash out. A week later, while I was at work, my landlord called. His voice was tight, embarrassed, almost apologetic. "I don't know how to tell you this, but someone spray-painted your door." I rushed home to find angry red letters scrawled across the wood. Traitor. Snake. Family killer. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just vandalism, it was a message. A warning. Neighbors peeked out from their doors as I stood there, cheeks burning. With shame, but also a strange clarity. She had crossed from personal betrayal into public attack. I filed another police report, and this time the officer didn't sugarcoat it. "She's escalating. Don't be surprised if she tries to come after you directly." My parents' calls turned from rage to pleading. "She's scared." My mother sobbed into the phone. "If she goes to jail, it'll destroy her. Don't you love her enough to save her?" That sentence crystallized everything for me. Because love isn't covering crimes, love isn't sacrificing your life so someone else can keep ruining theirs. Love is boundaries, and I finally understood I could love my sister and still refuse to be her victim. The legal process moved forward, slowly but steadily. The dealership handed over evidence. The bank froze the attempted charge. The detectives confirmed the fake ID. And with every step, the picture became clearer. Not of me as the villain, but of her as someone who had finally gone too far. Still, the hardest blow came when I learned the truth from a cousin who slipped me a message one night. My parents were planning to testify on her behalf, to say she'd only borrowed my information with my permission. My own parents, willing to perjure themselves to protect her. I sat on my couch holding that message, tears stinging my eyes, and felt a grief heavier than any betrayal yet. Because in that moment, I realized I hadn't just lost my sister to her lies, I had lost my parents too. And still, I couldn't waver. Because if I caved now, I wasn't just saving her, I was erasing myself completely. The day of her arraignment arrived, and it felt surreal walking into that courthouse, the walls echoing with footsteps, the air smelling faintly of paper and disinfectant. I sat in the back, my palms damp against the wooden bench, as they brought her in wearing borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. She glanced around the room, and when her eyes met mine, there was no shame, no apology, only fury, burning so hot I could feel it across the distance. My parents sat on the opposite side, stiff and cold, refusing to look at me. It was as if an invisible line had been drawn right down the center of that room. Her side, their side, and me, alone. The judge read the charges: attempted fraud, identity theft, falsifying documents, and each one rang like a gavel inside my chest. My sister pled not guilty, her lawyer spinning some tale about misunderstanding, about family disagreements blown out of proportion. And then came the moment I had dreaded. My parents were called as character witnesses. They stood there, hand on the Bible, voices steady as they painted me as the unforgiving sibling, the one who had pushed her to desperation, the one who had made a private matter public. Each word sliced deeper than the last, because it wasn't just that they defended her. It was that they erased me. They erased the years I carried her, erased the nights I stayed up working 2 jobs while she blew money on parties, erased the way she had stolen from me over and over again. In their story, I wasn't a victim. I was the villain. I remember sitting there, fists clenched, nails digging into my palms so hard they left crescents, thinking, maybe this is how it ends. Maybe I walk out of here with no family, no ties, no anchor. But then the prosecution presented the evidence. The dealership manager testified, calm and clear. The bank records showed the attempt. And when they pulled up the fake ID on the projector, the entire courtroom seemed to suck in a breath at once. My sister's face, my name, proof so damning even my parents couldn't spin it. I glanced at them as the image hung in the air, and for the first time, I saw doubt flicker in their eyes. The cracks were forming. My sister's lawyer stammered, tried to object, but the judge overruled, and as the session closed, a weight lifted from me. Not because it was over, but because finally the truth wasn't just mine to carry. It was written into the record, undeniable, permanent. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt hollow and heavy all at once. My phone buzzed with messages from extended family, some offering support, others accusing me of betrayal. But as I stepped into the sunlight, I realized something. I had already lost my family long before this courtroom. What I was gaining now was something they could never give me: my freedom, my peace, my right to exist without being someone's scapegoat. And deep down, I knew the final chapter was coming, the one that would close the book on this version of my life forever. The final chapter came quietly, not with a dramatic showdown, but with silence, the kind that settles in when everything has already been said and done. My sister eventually took a plea deal: probation instead of prison, community service instead of handcuffs. On paper, she got a second chance. In reality, she lost something far greater: the illusion that I would always be there to clean up her mess. My parents never forgave me. Holidays passed without invitations, birthdays without calls. The family group chat went silent for me, though I knew it still buzzed for her. For a while, that silence felt like grief, heavy and unbearable. But slowly, it turned into clarity. I built a new rhythm for myself: quiet dinners in my own apartment, weekends spent with friends who actually listened, a bank account that no longer trembled on the edge of collapse. Every time I looked at my credit report and saw it clean, untouched, I reminded myself, this is what it means to choose yourself. There were nights I cried, mourning the family I thought I had, the parents I wished had defended me, the sister I wished had loved me enough not to use me. But grief has a way of softening into wisdom. And now, when people ask if I have siblings, I pause before answering. Yes, I have a sister. But no, I don't have the obligation to lose myself for her anymore. Because the truth is, love without respect isn't love. Family without trust isn't family. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, even when it means walking alone. My sister once said I'd regret calling the cops. But standing here now, free of her shadow, the only thing I regret is how long it took me to say no.